Dear friends, welcome back to my channel Easy Quality Learning in another video, process validation. This is a very important topic, and in this we will discuss design, qualification and verification, three parts of the process validation. So let us start about process validation. So this is a diagram of process validation, how the methodology works. So stage 1 is identification of process variables, then control strategy is made, then process performance qualification is done, and based on process performance qualification, the parameters, critical process parameters as well as critical quality attributes are monitored, and then interpretation for your process improvement is taken, and then it is used for process betterment. So this is the life cycle of process validation. Now in this particular video, this will be the contents: available guidance, definitions, formulation and process design, when to do validation, and process performance qualification, how it is done, and then continued verification. So first we will discuss about available guidance. What are the available guidance over here? First one is WHO TRS 992 Annex 3 Appendix 7 non-sterile process validation. Then from US FDA guidance is there, from CDR guidance for industry process validation general principles and practices. EMA Europe is also having the guidance for process validation, that is guidelines and process validation for finished products, information and data to be provided in regulatory submission. HBFBI Canada validation guidelines for pharmaceutical dosage forms. And next one is from ASEAN, for ASEAN guidelines on submission of manufacturing process validation data for drug registration. PICS validation master plan, installation and operational qualification, non-sterile process validation and cleaning validation, that is the guideline from PICS. And ICH is also having a guideline. ICH gives the guidelines about process development. Since in the new concept of process validation, you have process design, then process performance qualification and process verification. All the three are the parts. So this pharmaceutical development concept is used in your process design part. We will understand about the definitions of process validation. So first one is prospective process validation. In prospective validation, the validation activities are carried out on the exhibit batches. After establishing the process performance, the product is released to the market. So in this, first the process validation is done, whether it is done on exhibit batches or whether it is done on pilot scale batches. And once the process validation is, all the criteria of process validation is confirmed and process validation reports are closed, then only the products are released to market. Then concurrent process validation. Validation carried out during the routine production of the products intended for sale. So in the case of concurrent process validation, we are doing validation on the commercial batches itself, and once we close the report of process validation, then we are eligible to sell the batches to market. Then retrospective process validation. In case of retrospective process validation, this is used in case of all the old products which are manufactured from years and years, but we do not have any data for those products. So for retrospective process validation, the data collection of minimum 20 batches and then interpretation is done on the process performance. So whatever batches we have executed, so out of that minimum 20 batches need to be taken, and their critical process parameters and critical quality attributes need to be trended, and from that the assurance need to be gained that our process was correct. But this retrospective process validation is not very much encouraged nowadays by regulatory agencies. So this is an outdated concept. Now people are no more using this concept. Then critical quality attributes: physical, chemical, biological, or microbiological property of the product, that should be in limit. So whatever physical, chemical or microbiological properties of the product are there, which should be in limit, they are critical quality attributes like your assay, dissolution, uniformity of content, then total viable aerobic count, related substances. These are all critical quality attributes of the product. In case of physical, you can say a disintegration test or your dissolution test. So these are the critical quality attributes. Then critical process parameters. Process parameter whose variability has an impact on critical quality attributes. So the process parameters, which process parameter? The process parameter due to which your critical quality attributes is impacted. Like if you increase or decrease the compression force, your hardness will increase or decrease, and as a result of hardness increase and decrease, your dissolution may get impacted. So this is a critical process parameter. Your mixing time and mixing process, that is a critical process parameter. If adequate mixing is not done, then your uniformity of content or uniformity of blend will not come. Then quality target product profile, a prospectively documented summary of the quality characteristics of finished pharmaceutical products that ideally will be achieved to ensure desired quality, taking into account a safety efficacy of the product. So quality target profile, this is the first step of your product development. Whenever we are starting the product development, so first we used to make a quality target product profile, that what is required in my product, and based on that we start our development activities. So this is the document for your product designing. Then process design. So in your process design or your formulation design, what are the parameters which need to be taken care? We will not discuss this topic in very much detail, but what are the activities which are carried out in your product design, that we will understand. So first, as I told earlier also, quality target product profile need to be documented. Then based on that, your formulation is developed, in which your excipient compatibility, choosing of formulation, then developing the formulation, and as per that formulation you need to choose a suitable process, that what process will be adopted for making that formulation. So whether it will be dry granulation, whether it will be wet granulation, whether it will be direct mixing, whether it will be tray drying or FBD drying, or it will be made on FBP. So that all the things is done in your process development. During process development and formulation development, and during finding the results of this particular our process development and formulation development experiments, we come across critical material attributes, critical quality attributes identification, and critical process parameter identification. So this all the three parameters who are very, very much important, and we studied we understood the definition of these parameters also. So these parameters need to be identified during your formulation development and your process development. What are those three parameters? Your critical material attributes, CQA identification, and CPP identification. Once this formulation development, process development, and your stability of near about 3 months is completed, then we can go for pilot scale batches or scale up batches. And once the scale up and pilot scale batches are completed successfully, then we are ready for execution of the batches on the commercial levels. So when we talk of execution of the batches on commercial level, at the time we need to do process performance qualification, that which is earlier which we used to call as a process validation. So when we need to do process validation, when execution of new product is there, whenever there is a change in site is there, then we need to do process validation. Whenever there is change in formulation of product is there, then process validation is required. If change in batch size is there, then also process validation is required. Change in your critical equipments is there, then also process validation is required. Change in make of API is there, then process validation is required. Or change in grade of make of critical excipients. So critical excipients means, let us suppose that if you are making a sustained release tablets, and if you are changing the grade of your polymer, let us suppose earlier you were using the HPMC KM100 from X make, now you want to use it from Y make, so it may impact your dissolution profile, or it may impact your other quality attributes. So you need to do the process validation. And for periodic verification of process, in order to establish that your process validation, your process is performing well as expected, we need to do periodic process verification process. Then next, prerequisites of process performance qualification or process validation. Whenever you want to do process validation, then what are the prerequisites? What we need to do before doing the process validation? So first, your technology transfer report from R&D shall be received. So all the parameters as per TTD, you need to verify, you need to check whether TTD is received and it is completed, adequate or not. The process performance qualification protocol shall be prepared based on the process and development which is given by your R&D team. You need to make process performance qualification protocol. All the equipment shall be qualified. Before doing process performance qualification, all the equipment shall be qualified. All the utilities shall be qualified. The personnel who are doing process validation, they shall be trained. They should have adequate knowledge and experience, and they should be told that how this process validation will be executed and what will be the course of action during this process validations. Before process validation, your analytical method validation should be completed. So these were the prerequisites of process performance qualification. Then how to do process performance qualification? In process performance qualification, your premises, utilities and equipment qualification need to be executed. So earlier when we were doing process validation, in the earlier concept, it was not, these details were not pulled into your report or protocol, that your premises and utilities need to be qualified. Of course, it was required that your utilities and premises and equipment should be qualified before process validation, but the details and that execution part was not pulled into your process performance qualification. But now, as per new guidance, in process performance qualification, you need to pull the details of your premises, utilities and equipment also. Then number of the batches for the process validation shall be decided. So whenever you are doing process validation, in our earlier guidelines or in our earlier concepts, so what was given, if you do the 3 process validation batches and prepare the report, your process validation is expected to be completed. But as per the new US FDA guidance and other guidance of WHO, it is specified over there that in US FDA it is written that the number of batches we need to decide, that the facility need to decide or the technical team need to decide, depending on the scientific rationale or depending on your complexity of your process. If your process is very simple, then it might be possible that 3 process validation batches are adequate and you need not to do further any batch execution. But if your process is very complicated, then you need to decide whether 3 is adequate or you need to take 5 batches or you need to take 7 batches. So that depends on your process and your scientific rationale what you are giving. Then once this number of batches are decided, then process validation batches shall be executed. During execution of process validation batches, critical process parameters shall be verified. Impact of the critical process parameter on CQA shall be established. All the results shall be documented and evaluated, and recommendations and conclusions of process validation shall be established. So this is in nutshell, these are the activities are done in your process validation. Then this is one template I drawn for you, that this can be the parameters which are expected to be there in process performance qualification protocol. This is not necessary that this should be the only parameters in your validation. You can pull some more parameters also, but this is one template I prepared, and it is for your guidance that generally these parameters remains in your protocol. First will be objective, scope, responsibilities, training, description of process, process flow diagram, risk assessment, then critical process parameter, sample quantity and sampling plan, acceptance criteria, results and observation, change control and deviation, conclusions and recommendations. So this should be the part of process performance qualification protocol. So you need to prepare a protocol as per this. Then I have given one example of risk assessment, that how your risk assessment can be prepared. I have not done the formal risk assessment in which you give the your risk numbers, and based on that your severity, probability and detectability. I just summarized based on the risk assessment report what can be the risk and what can be the control strategies, and how it can be documented in your process validation protocol. So like in first granulation, in granulation if you will see what are the risks associated, over or under capacity of the equipment. So over or under capacity of the equipment, since we are doing process equipment qualification, so in equipment qualification we come to know that our equipment capacity is this, and that is verified also. So the process is established as per your equipment capacities only. Then improper mixing of API during your granulation, improper mixing of API can be there. So API content shall be verified, mixing time and RPM is fixed. So this is the risk, and to mitigate this risk, what we are doing, what is our control strategy? API content shall be verified. We are verifying the API content during dry mixing, and mixing time and RPM is fixed. So we have fixed our critical process parameters also. Then improper winding. So your winding can be improper. So what we have done for this, binder concentration is derived based on the R&D trials only. So we have already done the R&D trials, and it is established that this is the binder concentration which is adequate. Non-uniform drying. So non-uniform, for what we are doing for mitigating non-uniform drying, uniformity of the drying shall be verified. We are taking the samples from 5 or 6 locations depending on the bowl size, and we are taking the samples for LOD, and the process parameters like temperature and time is established during this particular process. Then improper granule size. So to mitigate this risk, improper granule size, we are doing the sieving, and we are calibrating the granules through your particular sieve size which is required as per the development report. Then blending. What is the risk in blending? Non-uniformity of API based on API content in total dosage form. So what we are doing to control this strategy, what is our control strategy to mitigate this risk? Mixing time and mixing speed shall be established. So we are fixing the mixing time and mixing speed, that your blender RPM is fixed and blending time is fixed, so that every time the mixing happens in one way only. And what we are doing other thing, uniformity of content shall be done. So we are verifying the uniformity of blend, and we are taking the sample from various locations, and we are then verifying that whether the API content is correct at all the locations or not. Then next is compression. What we are doing in compression, variation of physical parameters like uniformity of weight, DT, friability and hardness. This is the risk. So what we are doing to mitigate this risk, speed of compression machine and compression force are fixed. So we are establishing the range over here for compression force and hardness, and on the basis of machine speed also we are establishing the uniformity of weight of our dosage form, and we are verifying the physical parameters periodically. Then comes primary packing. What we are doing in primary packing, leak test is the biggest risk in the your primary packing. So what we are doing to mitigate this risk, sealing temperature and machine speed are fixed, and we are establishing the range of this particular parameters, at what sealing temperature and what speed we are getting the correct sealing. So that becomes our operating range, and periodic leak test is done to verify the uniformity in sealing, and of course the physical observations are done for observation of knurlings. Some examples of critical process parameters I have pulled out over here for your understanding, that what can be the critical process parameter in case of tablets. So your mixing time in RMG and speed, this is the critical process parameter. Drying temperature and time, this is the critical process parameter during drying. Mixing time and speed in blender, when we are doing the blending, at that time your mixing time and speed of blender, which is RPM of blender, that is a critical process parameter. Compression speed, compression force, then in your coating spray rate, bed temperature, inlet temperature, pan RPM during primary packing, sealing temperature and speed of sealing machines. So these are the general critical process parameter. Of course, if you are having some different type of process, you can have some different set of critical process parameters, but this is for your understanding. I just pulled some of the critical process parameter over here, so that you can understand how the process parameters, critical process parameters are identified, and what these general parameters can be. If you will take liquid orals preparation, in case of liquid oral, what will happen? What will be the critical process parameter? If you are doing liquid oral, then your speed or mixing time will be the critical process parameter. While filling of bottles, filling speed or filling speed of bottle, that will be the critical process parameter. So likewise, in different processes, your different critical process parameter can be there. So you can identify based on your experience and knowledge. Then critical quality attributes. So critical quality attributes can be your assay, uniformity of content, dissolution, related substances, and total viable aerobic count. Then we can discuss about your sampling plan and specification. What happens in sampling plan? In granulation, we can take the samples for uniformity of granules and LOD in case of drying. So 5 or 6 samples can be taken, as I discussed earlier, also depending on the your ABD bowl size, and you can check the LOD of this granules. So it will give you assurance that on this particular set of parameters you will get this particular LOD, and there is no variation from location to location. Then blending. Uniformity of blend can be checked in blending, bulk density, tab density, sieve analysis, and angle of repose. These are the common parameters which are expected to be done in blend samples. And in uniformity of blend, we are expected to take around 10 samples, and again it depends on your size of blender. Generally 10 samples are taken. If your blender size is very small, then it can be less also. If your blender size is very big, then it can be 15 instead of 10, or it can be even 20 also. For uniformity of blend, you need to take a 1x to 3x sample. So x is your compression weight of the tablet. So if your 500 mg is the compression weight, then value of x is 500 mg, and you need to take the sample between 500 to 1500 mg. But if your one sample is taken of 500 mg, then all the other 9 samples should be taken of 500 mg only. Based on that, uniformity of blend is evaluated. Then compression. In compression, it is expected that we should take the samples at different compression speeds, at different compression force, to evaluate physical parameters and DT and DR of tablets. Composite sample can be taken from compression, and this can be analyzed for assay and uniformity of content. Then primary packing. The sample for leak test at different speed and sealing temperature. At high temperature, whatever sample is taken at high temperature, this sample shall be given for assay and RS test also. So it will give an idea that whenever you are taking a higher sealing temperature, then at the higher sealing temperature, whether you have an impact on your related substances or not. Then secondary packing. In secondary packing, batch coding, check wear speed verification is done. So these are the examples of sampling plan and specifications what we can keep. This is not an exclusive list. This is only kept over here just to make you understand that this type of parameters can be taken, and this can be the specifications which need to be checked during your sample checking. Then finally comes documentation part. In documentation, what we need to maintain, that is process validation protocol, of course, that is made before starting up process validation. Training report shall be included with process validation report. So whatever training we have done earlier for all the staff members and operators during process validation, so that record should be enclosed. All the results shall be recorded in process validation protocol formats designed for it. So how you are doing process validation protocol, it depends on that. If you are designing separate formats, then you can record all the results in format. If you are having a provision to record in the protocol itself, so you can do that way also. Then copy of batch records shall be enclosed with PV. And copy of all analytical results and raw data shall be enclosed with your PV. So it is expected that all the results should be enclosed with PV. So if during any inspection or any your review, if it is required, it can be cross-checked. If any change control deviation or kappa is there, if any deviation we have done during process validation, or we need to take any kappa during process validation, or any changes in process is there, so that need to be documented through your QMS tool. So whatever change control deviation or kappa, if it is generated, then it should be enclosed with this particular report. Then recommendations. Once we are doing process validation, then whatever the recommendations are there from process validation, so it is very important to note those process validation recommendations, because based on that we will establish our processing limits for critical process parameters, and based on that we will be controlling our quality attributes. So what can be the recommendations? Your mixing time at RMG, that can be your recommendation, that this shall be the mixing time, and speed, of course, both mixing time and speed. Then drying temperature and time. So what should be the drying temperature, what should be the time, and what should be the LOD. So LOD limit should be there. Then compression force and maximum and minimum hardness. So what should be the compression pressure which is set on machine, what should be the minimum limit, what should be the maximum limit, and what is the expected hardness, that should also be given in recommendations. Spray rate, bed temperature, pan RPM, your inlet temperature. So all these parameters need to be pulled out in your recommendations, that based on your 3 process validation batches or 5 process validation batches, these are the recommendations which need to be followed in our next routine batches which are taken for commercial purposes. Then sealing temperature and sealing speed. So as we have understood in this particular part, that what are the sealing that we have studied, the sealing temperatures, lower sealing temperature, higher sealing temperature, lower speed, higher speed. So based on that particular experience, we need to pull all this data over here, so that it can be implemented after our process validation batches execution. Then continued process verification. This is the third part of your process validation. First part was process design, second part was your process performance qualification, and third part is continued process verification. So what we are doing in continued process verification, so whatever critical process parameters we have identified and whatever critical quality attributes we have identified, we need to monitor all these parameters batch on batch. So whenever we are releasing the batch, at that time we need to see that all our critical process parameters and critical quality attributes are within the range what we have set in our process validation or not. And if there is a changes in trends or in deviation in your critical process parameters or critical material attributes or your critical quality attributes, then it need to be discussed, and whatever outcome is there from discussion or investigation, it should be taken for further process improvement. So as per new process validation guidance, what guidance is saying in nutshell, that after doing a process validation, 3 batches of process validation, your process validation is not completed. You need to keep on monitoring commercial batches which are executed batch on batch, and whatever information you are getting from this particular batches, that need to be trended, that need to be studied, and whatever knowledge you are gaining from this process validation batches, that need to be utilized for betterment of product. So this is the new concept. Earlier the process validation concept was that we need to execute 3 process validation batches, report is prepared, it is closed and kept in file, and then we used to execute our routine batches as per our practices, and whether it is out of trend or whether it is parameters are inside the trend, people are rarely bothering about it. So now as per new guidance, it is not like that. Your process validation starts from your process design and formulation design, then process qualification need to be done, then continued process verification need to be done, and this is a complete cycle of process validation which keep on going. So friends, this was the discussion about process validation. I hope you liked it. If you like it, then like the contents, share with others, and if you have not subscribed my channel till now, so please subscribe the channel so that you can get the regular updates and notifications. Thank you very much.